So I wanted to do a video on the top 10 absolutely worst cards in Terraforming Mars, worst project cards. And yeah, this one was hard to do. It was really hard. I knew what the bottom was, but here's like the good thing about this game, I guess, is that a lot of bad cards have their niche. Like there's a ton of cards that are horrible, and then I go, okay, but in this scenario, it's actually good, right? And so it's really hard to weigh. There's really only one that I think it's always bad, maybe two, but yeah, there's a bunch here. There's a bunch that are mediocre. The second thing that was kind of funny, Colonies and Turmoil, they have very solid cards. And then the other thing that surprised me is that Venus, not as many entries here as I hoped. I'm not going to tell you how many. It's not zero. But, yeah, Venus, like, the thing about Venus is that they're, like, the nichest cards, but they do work. They have a lot of synergy between them, so start to include some. And then the promo cards were just all over the place. There's a bunch of cards that just let you tap for, like, turn resources into other resources, like directed heat usage and melt works. And I mean, are these cards good? Probably not. Have I played them? Probably not. Like, I haven't played that many games with the whole deck, which is when you include these promo cards. It actually can make starting hands really weak, because obviously you wouldn't want this on your starting hand. But how weak are they? It's hard to tell. They're not good, but I didn't include any of those wacky ones. And a lot of, like, outdoor sports. Like, if you have a city next to an ocean, and then one of your opponents is picking his nose at the same time, then you can play this card. You get 2 points, and like you get a somewhat underwhelming effect. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, let's get started. So let's get started with one of those wacky promo cards, diversity support. So this one reminds me a lot of things like Dust Seals, or another wacky promo, Crash Site Cleanup. They all have requirements. They all have a pretty underwhelming effect. Now the reason I like diversity support the least, and it only makes the 10th spot, is because it has the craziest requirements of them all. Like Dust Seals, it's bad. It's probably not gonna make a difference. You should never draft it. You should never pay 5, like, pay it. But if you draw it, and you might play it if you have like 2 extra cash lying around, right? And it has to be early. The requirement's really bad. Crash Site Cleanup is actually a little better, when you have to like you have to guess pretty much when you're gonna be able to play it, and it's expensive, right? So, like, it costs 4, so you have to. I mean, it's not expensive, but you have to leave 4 laying around and wait for someone to get their plants blown up. But the good thing is that plant blowing up happens often at the beginning of each generation. So it's actually not that hard to play, and it gives you money back, so it's actually less expensive. It costs 3 or 4 once you factor in buying the card. Those seals cost 5, and diversity supports cost 4, right? The thing about diversity support, like I said, is that it has the most insane requirements, and so you basically never keep this because it's impossible to play most of the time. So you need 9 different resources. Now there are a lot of resources in the game. So you have the 6 standard ones: money, steel, titanium, energy, heat, and plants. And then you have the resources on cards. Now there's some pretty common ones, like floaters, microbes, and animals. And even science resources show up on a few cards. I think there's at least 3 that are pretty commonly used. And then you have asteroid resources. There's like 6 or 7 cards. Those are pretty rare. And usually they combo. So, like, I mean, there's a few good ones, but there's other ones that are better when you have a couple. And then you have like unique resources, like Priesters uses preservation resources, refugee camps uses refugee resources, security fleet uses fighter resources, right? But basically, I mean, you might get one of those cards. Those are none of those are even great cards, right? So maybe by the end of the game you'll have it, but it's rare to have 9 resources. If you have the 6 standard ones, and you're probably not, you're gonna have 5 or 4 most of the time by the end of the game. You probably have animals. You might not have microbes. You might not have floaters. So getting 7, I mean something like Priestard, getting 9, sorry, makes it easier. But I think this is just impossible. Like, I mean, if you draw it, you keep it, and you might play it. Which, like, those seals, if you draw it, you keep it, and you usually play it. So I think this one's worse. It's almost unplayable, and the payoff is so bad. Like, if the payoff was 3, like sort of what Search for Life does, where it's unlikely, it costs a little more, but then you get 3 points, which is that can make a difference. But the payoff is just 1 terraforming rating, and it doesn't really matter that it's terraforming instead of points, because you're not gonna do it at the beginning of the game, right? So yeah, it's almost unplayable. It's the most unplayable card in the game, and the payoff is not enough. Number 9, Underground City, and I think the reason I put this here is because it's the only real big trap card in this countdown. The one that I played the most out of all of these. It took me the longest to realize it was so bad, and the reason is it's just a crazy expensive city. So like most cities, they take 1 energy, they give you 3 money. So that's Cupola, Noctis, Corporate Stronghold. That's what usually they do. This one, they give you 1 more resource because 2 steel is 4, right? But less flexible. But they charge you a whole extra energy for that, which is insane. Like, if you think of the other card that charges 2 extra energy, the Capital, it actually gives you 5, so it gives you more of a more flexible resource, and it gives you a bunch of points, usually 2 or 3 points. Now it costs more, but it's way more worth it, like, because you can get 6 points with the Capital. You're not going to get that with Underground City. And so it's really bad. It really stifles your economy when you play this early. This is what I mean, but there's a niche to everything. If you draw this and you have 2 energy production, and you're floating a bunch of steel, 9 steel to be precise, and you can play this, assuming you have plant production, and you'll get a couple of points from it. So it's a couple of free points if you're floating steel and energy, which reminds me a lot of Magnetic Field Dome. The thing is, Magnetic Field Dome, I think it's better. It gives you 2 plant production, which can turn into 4 to 6 plants, which is a greenery, which is 2 more points, and it gives you 3 terraforming rating, which is slightly better than points. I mean, not late, but it sometimes can be used to flip Benefactor. It has to be really close, and that's rare. But yeah, Underground City, like, that's the only use I find. Like, steel drop late in the game, early in the game, it just screws your economy. Super expensive city, and it's more expensive than things like Cupola. Like, if it's gonna be 2 energy, then it should be way cheaper. But I don't know why you would do this instead of a standard project city early, and late only as a steel dump, and it's worse than really not great steel dump cards like Magnetic Field Dump. So yeah, number 9. Number 8 is Directed Impactors. So this is one of the asteroid cards, and is, I think, by far the worst one. Definitely the least efficient one. So like, compare it to Comet Aiming. Now, Directed Impactors costs 9 less. But it costs double to activate the ability, so it actually, in 3 turns, Comet Aiming, in 3 activations, Comet Aiming catches up. And Comet Aiming is placed in oceans, and oceans are better than heat. Like, they let you play usually better cards faster because there are less oceans, and they pick up things from the ground. So yeah, the Directed Impactors is way worse, but let's just compare it on what it does. First of all, it places asteroids on any card, but it's the most expensive card to do so, and maybe the most underwhelming effect. And so it's not really useful for a combo with other cards, because, I mean, 1 temperature is not that exciting, it's pretty underwhelming, and the cost to place it makes it not worth to combo with other cards, and it's sufficiently rare that you get another asteroid card. But basically, then by itself, what it's gonna do is it's gonna increase the heat every other generation. Now it does that for like the first hit bump, and it's not gonna come immediately. It's gonna cost you 8 plus 6, 14 plus 3, 17. Right, so 17 for the first hit bump. And every other generation, that's basically like 4 heat. And so compare that not to Wall Area, because that's a great card. Let's compare it to a much more mediocre heat production card like GHG Factories. The GHG Factory gives you 4. It costs 11 plus 3 for the card plus say 7 for the energy. That's 21, right? So for 21, you get a bump every generation, like every other generation for the rest of the game. In this one, you get that, but yeah, by the second time you pay it, you're already over. Like the first one cost 17, the second one is gonna be 23, right? And then it's gonna be way more and more and more. And you wanna play this early to exploit it. So I mean, if you get 4 heat bumps out of this, it's gonna be way more expensive than a mediocre card like GHG Factories. And you could say, okay, but GHG Factories, you're stuck with hit. With this one, you can just keep the money after the hit is done. I mean, sure, but then it's worse to play because it just gives you less hit steps, right? So, like, if you pay 2, like, what was it, 8 plus 6 plus 6, that's 20, 23 for 2 hit steps. Like, you might as well just play Lava Flows and pick something off the ground, right? So yeah, I think this one's really bad. Number 8. Number 7, Food Factory. And this one is, it's not that it's inefficient, it's that it's like there's never a time to play it. Actually, I was kind of surprised that I put it in the top 10 and then it kept like moving it lower and lower and lower, because there's just, when do you play this? I mean, it gives you a point for 12, which is bad. And then you can turn your plant income into 4 money income, so that's not something you ever want to do late in the game. It's not really a mid-game thing. Like the point is not a mid-game thing, money is not a mid-game thing, and you want to usually build your plant production in the mid-game. And so early, that's when it would make sense to get your money production up. That's when plant production is least important, because especially if you have one, like only one, your plants might get blown up, but then you're also playing the game wrong. And then the point is not useful early, right? So early, like, do you really want to pay for a plant production to do this? Like, what's the cheapest plant production? Probably Algae bacteria. It's probably like the cheapest early one plant production. So you pay 9 plus Food Factory, which is 12 plus 3 is 15. So you're paying 24 for 4 money production and a point, which is crazy inefficient, and you need 2 cards. So there's really no time to play this. So I might rank this lower. It's just it's not that crazy, but it's just like what this is the thing that why we're gonna see more base game cards here. I don't think they had figured out fully like what would work and what didn't, despite all the playtesting they probably did. Like you see the biggest whiffs, I think, on the base game cards. Venus is a whiff of an expansion, kind of, but the cards work within themselves. But yeah, moving on. Urban Decomposers. Yeah, it's like design. It's like Archaebacteria, but with very weird. Like you need a city and a colony, which is super expensive early to play a super inefficient plant production card. So you'll be broke. Like, I mean, it's nice colonies and cities. Like, I mean, colonies especially. The first colony is usually a good play early. First city is, I don't think it's necessary for a while. But maybe you're Tharsis. Maybe you had a good city prelude and a bunch of plants, and you protect them. But then it's like, is that really like, is this really necessary? And like, to offset all these requirements, the payoff is that it gives you 2 microbes, which you're gonna use rarely. So I don't know. I think these requirements are crazy for a card that gives you as much as a bad card like Archaebacteria. Just inefficient. Um, Speaking of inefficient, micromills. So is a one hit production ever gonna make a like? Think of the number 10 spot, diversity support, which I compare to those seals and crash and cleanup. And big thing about those is like 1 point is rarely gonna win you the game. You could say at the same time paying for that 2 cash is probably not gonna lose you the game. Drafting early can, but is one hit gonna win you the game? One hit in a 10 generation game is gonna be at best 2 points, right? The big difference is you have to play this really early. um, I mean, it's really 1.5 points at 1.2 points at best, 0.25, but it's usually gonna be 1 point. This is gonna be one terraforming rating, probably very late in the game if you want to calculate it like that. And it costs 6. It has no tags. There's just no reason to play this. Even if I draw this, like I'll play the seals if I draw it. I'll only play this if I draw it and I have a discount. Because it just basically it is sometimes like throwing 3 money away. So yeah, micro meals. And you know what's worse than micro meals is combining micro meals with another inefficient card like Lichen, and you get Snow Algae. So Snow Algae, think about it. Micro meals cost 6 for one hit. Lichen costs 7 plus 3, 10. So that's 16 between the two of them for one plant. Snow Algae costs 12 plus 3 for buying the cards, 15. So it costs 1 less to do the job of 2 pretty bad cards. Saving Grace is the plant tag, but it's not a cheap plant tag. Like, it's more expensive than most plant tags in the game. So it's one of the worst plant tags you can get if you're looking to play something like NRA or Insects, right? And so it's not enough to save it. I think this one's another wacky promo. It's not even wacky, it's just a bad promo card that just forces you to play 2 inefficient cards instead of 1. 2 cards I never play, Lichen and Micro Mills. You get it all in one, and it's like double inefficiency for 1 cash less. It's not lower because of the plant. On to a card I really hate, Saturn Surfing. Another promo card. So Saturn Surfing, I've gone over the math on why this doesn't work many times, and the reason is, like, basically you get 1 resource per earth tag, and then you get to tap that to remove resources and get at 5 cash or less from it. But if you see what you pay just to play it, like, so you pay 16 to play it. It does come with a point. Put a bunch of floaters, and then you remove floaters, and so you need, like, if you have 5 earth tags, it basically won't pay back. You get 15 back with 5 earth tags, and you need to do it 5 turns before the game ends. Which is not, like, you're basically, okay, you're paying only 1 for a point, but you're playing it really early. You have to play it in Gen 5, right? So you need like 6 or 7 earth tags before Gen 5 to get this to be playable. Not even playable, just not horrible. And I mean, compared to Cartel does so much more for so much less. And so yeah, I don't know, like, this to me it's unusable. You need really 7 or 8 earth stacks to get to play it 4 gens maybe and get a lot of, like, get 5 a lot of times out of it. It's just really bad. It doesn't work. Okay, top 2. Anyone who is familiarized with the channel should know where it is. Maybe not the order, but number 2, it's Venus Soils. It's underwear. Yeah, Venus Soils is horrible. It's 20 for a Venus step and a plant production. So the first thing, plant and Venus are the 2 most unrelated things on all the game. Like, they're basically very hard to do together, and that's why Aphrodite is the worst corp too. So yeah, there's essentially no use for it. I try to think of the niche scenario, and the niche scenario is, I guess, last generation. You have, you know, 7 plants, so you play this and you get 1 victory point for Venus, and then you get a plant, and so you place an extra greenery because of this, and then that gives you 2 points because a greenery at the end of the game next to a city is 2 points, and so you pay 23 for 3 points, which is still fairly inefficient in a nearly impossible scenario. It's just a huge pile of shit. It's really unbalanced. I hate this card more than the next one because of just what a horrible idea it is. Yeah, so not the worst, but second worst card in the game. Venus huge piece of shit. Finally, the worst card in the game, Underground Detonations. There's just no way to play this. It's like, it's the only card that I thought, okay, there are no scenarios where I would play this. If you go through the list, Venus Soils, I gave you one really crazy scenario, but it works. Saturn Surfing, if you have a bunch of Jovians, I mean, it gives you points, I guess. Snow Algae, you might need it for NRA, and if you're Ecoline, the heat is not terrible. Micro Meals, you draw it, you have discounts, you play it. Urban Decomposers, I don't know, you're Tharsis, you play the Murder Prelude, and then you get Poseidon, so you get your colony and your city for free, and then you also, you know, have Psychrophiles, and so you play this. Actually, wow, what a combo. I mean, this one's one of the more likely ones. Food Factory, I don't know, your opponent's rushing, and you realize your plant production, you don't want it, so you turn it into, I don't know, maybe Food Factory is one of the worst. Actually, it might be too high, I can't believe that shit. Directed Impactors, you have too much titanium and you wanna, you know, blow it off on some heat. I mean, it's not unusable, it's just very inefficient. Underground City, I gave you the scenario. And Diversity Sport, I guess, like, if you draw it, you have the 9 resources, you play it. But when do you play Underground Detonations? Like, you can be floating still at the beginning of the game, which is the only time this works. And then if you use it once, it's horrible. It's 19 for 2 heat production, which is crazy. If you pay it twice, then it's what? 29 for 4 heat production. Just a tad more, you know, than Mohol area or GHG factories, and you also get it staggered, so you don't even get the full 4 hit the first generation you play it. The more you play it, the worse it is, and the less you pay it, the worse it is. So it's just horrible. So yeah, Underground Detonations, worst card in the game. That's probably the top 1 and 2 I'm sure about. 3 to 10, I could be convinced to remove. But yeah, 1 and 2, I'm pretty sure those are the 2 worst cards in the game in that order. Anyway, that's it for my video. Let me know what you think. Hope you liked it. Hope you agree or disagree. Whatever, just leave a comment below. And yeah, see you next time.